Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. The first issue, basis of choice of this topic, it's our daily ardas. It's our daily ardas, which I view as a paradigm of prayer. Very rare type of document. पंजाब प्यारियां चार साहबजादियां 40 मुक्तियां. I was really inspired. Why don't I go deeper into this matter? And why is it 40 mukte a part of our daily life? The only thing which I wish is that after Pyaryan Sechiyaryan, if the word Marjivdayam had been put, maybe a direct linkage to the topic. There are a number of, actually a very important feature of Gurbani is that whenever they take up any issue, the number of terms which they use, they really vary very much. Take any other theme, for example, let us say grace, for another mayor, so many. And mostly they have the same meaning, but maybe slightly different shade of power or something like that. So here you will find the type of synonyms we have for the Jeevan Mukta. GM, when I said it stands for Jeevan Mukta. My next issue was what exactly is the Sikh academic conception of Jeevan Mukta as compared to the Panthic conception as reflected in the Ardas. So I think I've brought in the element of martyrdom, which was the basic trait of the 40 Mukte. You are familiar with all these issues. They fought till death, both at Chamkaur Sahib and Khidrana. That the history is fairly well known to you, so I won't spend any time on that. Why I call the Jeevan Mukta as an ideal person? Though, you see, if you go by Gurbani, Guru Nanak Dev Ji's emphasis is mainly on Gurmukh. Guru Arjan Dev Ji's mainly on Brahm Gyani. Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji mainly on Virag. In fact, let me straightway put it that my focus in this presentation will be on the Bani of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, because this is the central theme of his Bani. But along with that, I'll also be touching how the ideal person is conceived in Gurbani itself. I think the Gurus totally revolutionized the concept of Mukti. And their emphasis is not only on higher consciousness, but also for the total freedom from the fear of death, fear of insecurity, fear of oppression and injustice, and fear of want. And I think they wanted the followers, the Sikhs, to be free of all these 4 fears, and that is the basis of Sikh theology and what should I say, Sikh philosophy, whatever you like to call it really. let me add another thing. They totally changed the root metaphor. For example, in Hindu tradition, the mukti was related to release from the body, but gurus totally changed it to egoism. It's just that. Summary description of Jeevan Mukta. This you have 5-6 traits. You are familiar with all this. The real emphasis is not only escape from the delusive power of Maya, but also be with the unitive consciousness, which is in Gurbani conveyed as live.
Could you tell us?
Highest values in Gurbani. Here my idea is, I have mentioned 5 of these, but the most important amongst these is the emancipation in life itself, that is Jeevan Mukta. So my purpose in bringing in this was simply to highlight that Jeevan Mukta is the highest sort of value and ideal of human life. Blissful ecstasy and the other absolute consciousness cannot be separated from this state. Hymns related to Jeevan Mukta. Here I have 2 parts. One here and there is another later where I have given why I am taking these views by mentioning all the shabads on which this analysis is based. Here you will find in the line 12 shabads or Shri Guru Granth Sahib's page number 275, 294 and so on and so forth. They say loving devotion. There's a beautiful expression in Gurbani which says Bhagat Bhai, and these shabads are at 288, 290, 490, etc. All these are mentioned over there. Causes and consequences of bondage. What is that bondage which man wants to get liberated, and what means does he adopt for this purpose? In Sikhism, the root cause of the man's bondage has been accepted to be home, which is a real hindrance in the attainment of his ideal. And there are so much shabads on home, and one can sort of summarize them saying home has been called both the melody and the remedy. That is that shabad, famous shabad at page 466.
Can you elaborate on that? How is it the remedy also?
Sorry?
How is it? How is home not only the melody but also the remedy? Can you explain?
Oh,
that?
right. I think there's a. I'm afraid I don't want to misquote anything, but home dirg rog hai, daru bhi isma hai. This is what I think, if I correctly remember the line. Yeah, that's right. In this sense, the home really is very much part of one's personality. And if one has to go on some further developments, he has really to depend upon his home in his personal identity. If you totally sort of disregard home, so it won't lead anywhere. That is why the Guru said, "Ke home dhire go gaye, daru bhi isma hai." Maybe this topic itself really needs a full dress.
So but the remedy, how does it become the remedy?
Sorry?
How does it become the remedy?
Which
How does harming become the remedy?
remedy? Oh, I see. This is what I was trying to submit. That home is a very much part of one's personality, and if one wants to progress.
So let it drive you in a positive way?
Right, yeah, it's both positive and negative aspect, and that is the great point in Gurbani, that wherever they take up any theme, they cover with from so many perspectives. Let me say, take for example death. Really, there, if you view all the shabas on death, somewhere you will find it is a blessing. Like Kabir ji's famous lok, jis darne and he considered it is a bliss, and not this one. One of the gurus also calls death as a bliss, because jab tak maroge nahi, to how will you sort of get connected to the Lord and so on.
Can I make a comment? I think if you look at the next line, मैं दीर्घ रोग है दारू भी स्माए कृपा करे जे अपनी त गुर का सबद कमाए. Within oneself, which is where the home is part of who you are, but within yourself, you yourself have to make yourself follow the Guru's word. Of course, it's part of God's grace also. Kripa kare je apni gur ka sabad kamaye. Aap kamana, and that's where the home comes in. You know, it's the self that's doing that. So maybe that's one.
Thank you.
Can I make another interpretation?
Sure.
That home also is needed for survival.
Haji?
Home also is needed for survival. Home generates initiatives. Right, all we do. So if I find I have home in me, nobody else is going to solve my home problems. I have to take the initiative to do it. So I think when it is said that Tirak bhi home rog hai daru bhi ismaye, it means that the person is able to personal effort and by Guru's grace to get on the right path and over the home.
I think we will have to locate shabas in Gurbani where sort of home is projected in positive terms. That's a very important issue, certainly.
Uncle, a long time ago, I read this book. This is hardly the person to be quoted in this forum, but Ayn Rand has a tiny little book called The Virtue of Selfishness. Choti ji kitab hai, and it was pretty popular when I was growing up. And there she says that when you direct the self to the higher self, then all selfishness really becomes very, very profitable, very positive. And perhaps that's, something we can think about, that our home is always telling us that, you are great, but if we submit to the grace and attribute everything that is happening to grace, perhaps that brings the home a few notches down.
Right. Thank you. Absolutely correct. The home itself is such a comprehensive subject, and it has so many aspects that one will need altogether a different session for discussing home, just that one. I have indicated some of the perspectives on home, on these causes and consequences. And one thing, of course, is home and naam are the two concepts which stand in opposition to each other. Home's effect on consciousness of man result in his duality. The sense of duality results in defiance of divine will and so on. So you can read that one.
Can I add another small thing? That home is also sometimes translated as self-conceit.
Self-conceived.
Conceit. That means it is harmful for the self to not to eradicate home from your own thinking. Carry too much away into it. And because it will lead you the wrong path, particularly as a result of the self-conceit.
I think that brings to me a very important theme in Gurbani. What do we mean by self-renunciation? And what you are really saying is a part of that self-renunciation. Negating home. It will be that type of thing. And maybe I'll come later to this theme itself. of what exactly Gurbani says on the issue of self-renunciation. Again, a very, very comprehensive term.
There's also the term marjivanaya, marne da anda na marjivanaya. That's probably related to very closely to Jeevan Mukt.
I'm sorry, I really, health-wise, number of problem. I'm becoming more and more hard of hearing. So if you don't mind, kindly, whosoever speaks, a bit louder. Yeah, that's right. Thank
so
you.
So Gurbani badi wali anda na, you have to kill yourself. Mar jivna, mar ke jivna. So
Right.
that is closely related to Jeevan Mukt also.
Right, absolutely. I'll come to that. जिन्हें गुरबानी दे शब्द है ना, इधर से जीवन मरना, जीवन मरे, है जी. Then शब्द मरे. I'm coming to all those. So you'll see the list of the hymns in which there's emphasis on that one. And then how to recognize a Jeevan Mukta, that is mainly by his actions, by his speech, conduct, etc. That's right. Now, Jeevan Mukta in Gurbani, if you kindly see this last 12, I've given all these references. My other focus will be on Sikh Gosht, Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Bani, where the important theme is, again, let me say that, partly renunciation and liberation. The Sikh Gosht give you very clear-cut views of Guru Nanak on all these issues, and here I have tried to give reference to those portions of Sikh Gosht where these issues are discussed. One view is that the entire theme of Sikh Gosht is related to sort of discovering Gurmukh. What exactly is Gurmukh? And one scholar feels that Guru Nanak Dev Ji's mission going around, particularly discussion with the yogis, was for his search of Gurmukh, which means really he was trying to conceptualize what, according to his thinking, is a Gurmukh. The lifestyle of Jeevan Mukta.
So you mentioned also yoga.
Yes, here I have mentioned that number one is Guru-oriented as against Manmukhs. The faith in one God only, that is based on the Mool Mantra. Loves his Guru, Guru nal pyar bahut zyada. He is Satyar. He is full of virtues, Gunvanta. And features of the Gursikh, this Siddhak, Sabr, Sat, Santokh, Taram, Dan, Daya, Khima, Garibi, humility, that Prem, love, Gyan, knowledge, Vivek. And these Shabas, this analysis is based on the Guru Granth Sahib's Bani at page 522, 142, 1245. I wish I could take out some Shabas specifically where these ideas sort of very clearly mentioned, but then I found that these slides will become a bit too lengthy and too many. Lifestyle of Jeevan Mukta is another one. Possesses tranquility, sage. He remains detached, nirlep, alep, udasi, bairagi. Lives in a state of equipoise, sage. Possesses critical observation, leading a pure, good and healthy life. Aspirant keeps moving towards God realization. and so on and so forth. Jeevan Mukta in Shri Guru Tegh Bahadur's Bani, as I said, that the dominant theme of Guru Tegh Bahadur's composition is spiritual liberation, described as Mukti, Nirbhan Pad or Nirbhay Pad. Then the Guru discusses the way to liberation, and that's all I think you read. Guruji emphasis on renunciation, Vairag, Vritti, that is in his Shabad Rag Gaudi at page 219, Sorat at page 633. I am very fond of that Sorat 633, Jo Nar. Right, yeah, that's right. That is the best poetry which has been considered on the renunciation and issues of overcoming opposites. Yes, transcending totally opposites. And of course, Guruji says clear-cut, one can never become Jeevan Mukta without emptying the basket of duality, which is full of desires and passions. I've given reference to some of the shabads which sort of reflect this analysis. Jeevat Marna, Dr. Indermohan Singh ji had raised this issue. What is Jeevat Marna? It's a dying out of the life of Home, of five evils, and entering into the phase of contemplation, altruism, and love of God. In few words, this is what it really Jeevat Marna. But other aspects you can also take, attaining state of Jeevan Marna in this, okay, the ideal state of, that's a descriptive, just that one. And again I have given the list of shabads where you find not only this Jeevat Marna, but Jeevat Mare and Shabad Mare. I have given the page references to these one.
Question, Uncle. On number 3, it is within the reach. Number 3 is the state is within the reach of every human being. Since if you just follow the ethical course,
right,
you may receive the blessing.
Right.
How does Nadar play a role?
Sorry?
How does Meher and Nadar play a role?
Oh, really? That's it's a beautiful Shabad. I'm really afraid I don't want to sort of quote a Gurbani line and not do it exactly as it is. One of the Shabads says, Mukti chin mein hoye. In a moment you can get that if the Guru's Mehr and Nadar is there. I think I'll quote that Shabad. Somewhere I have that.
But how does Nadar happen? Can you become deserving of it? Is it completely up to God and Vaheguruji and you don't question that?
No, you have to make your own efforts also.
You have to make the effort.
Right, that's absolutely. There's so much emphasis in Gurbani on the self-efforts also.
So it's very different from the Christian Miltonic concept
Right.
of grace,
Right.
which has nothing to do with what you earn, right?
Right.
It's random,
Right,
right?
That's
It's not
right.
random.
right. No, not at all. Right. Not at all.
I think the key issue there is you have to look upon it as grace, which means that there is no sense of I, there's I achieved it.
Let me
It's
put
total
it.
surrender,
What are
that's
the
why it's
main
grace.
themes of Gurbani actually? What are those two? If one were to describe in two formulas, what could be those? One is a total emphasis on the moral, spiritual aspect. The other is on the socio-cultural aspect. And both of these converge together in a state of saj, and that is for the welfare of the humanity as a whole. Just that one. I'll put that. But I'm duty bound to tell JJ that Shabad where they say you in a moment you can get kindly feel free. Actually, my purpose in choosing this was really to learn from all of you. Interaction, really, just that. So maybe I'm going a bit too fast because I have to cover so many aspects of it. But please,
So
at any
homework you're leaving for us.
Sorry?
Giving us a ton of homework.
Right. Ethico-moral aspect of the Jeevan Mukta.
ਇੱਕ ਪਲ ਜੇ ਇੱਕ ਛਿਨ ਤੇ ਆਇਓ ਕਾਲ ਫਾਸ ਕੇ बीच ना आयो
Hey?
ਇੱਕ ਪਲ ਇੱਕ ਛਿਨ ਜੇ ਤੇ ਆਇਓ ਕਾਲ ਫਾਸ ਕੇ बीच ना
Yeah, absolutely right.
आज मिलावा बाबा फरीद जी कहते ने आज मिलावा शेख फरीद
Right.
टाकिम कुंजड़ियां मनो मचंदड़ियां
Right.
if you restrain your senses today you can meet him आज मिलावा right now
बिल्कुल जी.
आज मिलावा शेख फरीद टाकिम कुंजड़ियां टाकिम means restrain kunjadiyan means all these senses
Right.
टाकिम कुंजड़ियां मनो मचंदड़ियां these are the one who is really creating the desires and the passion within you
Yeah, you're right. क्या नहीं कर तेरे सच्चे साहिबा. That is if you have faith in that, certainly you can depend upon that grace, really. But you have to deserve it. And the basis of deserving is really the ethical moral aspect. Unless you really adopt all those aspects of Jeevan Mukta. I think I've listed this is the second part of this. The Gurbanis and plus Guru Gobind Singh Ji's main emphasis has been the ethnic equality and universal brotherhood of men. And that feeling generates love, and the love then they express through the feeling of altruism. Jeevan Mukta considers service to man God as the service rendered to God Himself. These are briefly.
It's very beautiful.
Right. Types of
Grace
mukti.
is there all the time.
Sorry?
Grace is there all the time.
I don't get it. Please. Yanj.
I think grace is there every minute of the life from Almighty.
थोड़ा ऊंचा बोल देना जी.
It is His grace that I am here listening to you.
Oh, okay, right. Right.
We should not expect grace from Him. It's there. I'm here
Right.
from His grace, right?
Now, as I said earlier, the liberation, whatever you call mukti, the Gurbani gives a real preference to Jeevan type of mukti, and doesn't favor very much Videh mukti, which is she after one's body goes away. These are the Hindu concept of Videh mukti, the negation of physical body is a must for Videh mukti. But Guru's emphasis, that has no social relevance. Yeah, what is the social relevance? If someone is gone, and that's at the most, he can provide a bit of inspiration to others. Otherwise, so that basically is the reason I have given some issues which really promote or sort of provide analysis of the Jeevan Mukti in Gurbani in preference to Vidya Mukti. Any issue on this one? I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not really fully explained the concept of Vidya Mukti.
Well, I understood Vidya Mukti
Sorry?
simply means, I understood from you that Vidya Mukti simply meant death and
Sorry?
From you.
Yeah. Vidya Mukti is obtained after the one dies, not during life, and that is the principal difference between Jeevan Mukti and Vidya Mukti.
Yeah. Can I bring in one small related thing?
Right.
Which is that एक जरा शब्द है ना बड़ा beautiful शब्द है हम मैं करी तां तू ना ही तू होवे मैं ना है बुझो ज्ञानी बुझना अकथ कथा मन माहे बिल्कुल तक न पाइए अलग वसै मनाए आप गया परम खो गया जन्म मरण दुख जाए गुरमत अलग लखाइए उत्तम मत राय नानक सुहंग हंसा जप प्यो त्रिभाओं से समाए. I think its main meaning is that we are both, we have a bigger self, which is the divine self, which is why
Absolutely right.
and we have the smaller self, right? And the divine self in us is always liberated.
Right.
So the more we can elevate our lives, right, which is what you have said many times in the social aspect, that we can elevate our lives and our behavior and our curiosity, and if we can connect to everything that exists. Like there is also another beautiful line, which is some may rav reha prab soi jiske karan I'm just quoting it that there is God in every human being, so we have to connect not only to God but also to all the society, all human beings, all the nature, everything that exists, right? So the paradox is that we have both the higher self and the lower self, and sometimes we identify ourselves much more with the higher self, like in Simran, and in many other times we are in our lower self.
Most of the time.
Thank you so much for raising these issues. In fact, one attempts to sort of raise an issue. What precisely is the Sikh theology of body? What exactly is our theology of body? There are again so many perspectives from which Gurbani says on body. No? Guru Nanak Sahib in one mood says, "Tu kaya mein ruldi dekhi." And the other perspective is that it is only through the body that you can attain something. Right, that's true. So these are, in fact, each and every topic of this type needs a full-scale discussion, but I'm just raising the issues to get back your feed. That's how I learn. Yes, please.
My purpose in bringing this was that this Shabbat has a nice thing. It's a paradox. Akat katha man bin gun tatna pai nahi. Om मैं कहीं तातु नहीं तू होवे मैं नाई बुझो ज्ञानी बुझना अकथ कथा मन माए. It's a sort of a paradox for the scholar to understand the difference between the lower and the upper self. That we have both of them at the same time, and the upper self is always liberated.
No, right. See, this brings me to another very important issue of what people sometimes conceive as paradoxes in Gurbani. My submission will be that our gurus totally succeeded in resolving these paradoxes. And one can take it issue by issue.
No, I didn't mean to disagree with what you say. I was only pointing out that the Guru is saying that it is something to think about, to meditate on, because it's a paradox.
No. See, the real paradox in Sikhi is our desire to see which is invisible. Isn't so? What can be more paradoxical than this situation? Right, okay. No, I thought you were going to raise an issue. No, it's fine, thanks, sir. But again, you see, if we come to paradoxes and how the gurus resolved all those paradoxes, one could provide material easily for that type of. And see, my basic discipline has been at the education level, chemistry. It's only after retirement that really I went deep into Gurbani. So therefore what I'm trying to say is that I do try to look at the various issues from scientific point of view, a rational point of view, and it's not just blind faith. It's not just blind faith. So let me proceed. Sikh theology of liberation.
She has a question.
Sorry.
I was going to ask when
Can I do this one?
I'm sorry, I forgot to bring my hearing aid. Yeah.
when you think about the paradoxes and you pursue that questioning, do you maybe though you might become more like the Siddhs or the yogis who are looking for proof, and maybe the message is also to not pursue that scientific reasoning in the Bani, but instead to become immersed in the Nam through the Bani. So because I know that Guru Nanak was often saying, no one knows the proof of when the creation started, and so he seems to always try to take you away from that pursuit of some sort of an analytic or logical pursuit and come back to the faith and internal process instead of that external search for truth.
Right.
Yeah, the Guru is also very critical of pure intellectual debate and discussion.
Right.
Places.
Yeah.
That stays at that level and doesn't go beyond to the level of spiritual perception.
Vichaar on Gurbani, that's really very much required. Yeah, that's right. True. And grateful to Dr. Inder Mohan Singh for conceiving this motion. Now coming to the Sikh theology of liberation. If you kindly go through this one, then there's different shades of meaning in Sikh canon, and let me put it like that, why I use word canon instead of Gurbani, because canon implies not only this scripture but other traditions, resources like maybe Dasam Granth, maybe yeah, that's right, exactly. I feel sometimes very much pained that the academics have unnecessarily raised so many issues on Dasam Granth. Some people, they say everything is by Guru Gobind Singh. Some people say that nothing is by Guru Gobind Singh, and there are some people in between. Yeah, that's one. Personally, I like one book which is called by Gyani Lal Singh, Chonvi Bani Dasam Granth. That is, of course, his personal analysis, but I also know this, that there are scholars who change their earlier findings due to the sort of pressure of Visakha Singh of Gobind Sadan, New Delhi. So it's right. But then Rayat Namas are the other important source. So therefore, whenever you talk of this canon instead of Gurbani, which means I am trying to bring in all the resources of the Sikh tradition for that one. Of course, the primacy will always be to Gurbani. The primacy will be that one. For example, in this one, I mean, we are using this term mukti in 3 different shades, and that can apply to many other concepts like this, as a religious concept, as a metaphysical concept, and then Miri Piri, and then creation of Khalsa and Khalsa's ideology, yeah.
I really like the fact that you've integrated,
Right.
quite loud,
Okay.
into, activism, Miri Piri.
Right.
Release from injustice.
Uh-huh.
And I think that I love that. I've never heard that
Right.
perspective before, and it's very valid because we've always been told to go out and fight
Right.
for what's right.
Right.
Whether you do it with a sword or you do it with a pen,
Uh-huh.
you cannot take things just
Right.
passively. And I
Right.
love that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Very good, thank you. I think the main point in the Sikh theology is, a good Sikh is really required to attune himself to the divine will. Hukum jinu manna kehde ho na, just that one, yes. The next part, again, part of the Sikh theology, main beliefs. You can just quickly go over this one.
You changed it.
Sikh view of salvation.
You moved too quickly, Uncle.
Sorry?
Can you go back to the previous slide?
Most certainly. Just kindly. Sorry, I'm rushing through because I don't want to encroach upon Justice's time.
Since so much of your presentation is in these slides and they are so full, I request you to send a copy to me and I'll distribute it and put it on the web also. So we'll have the slides will be accessible by everybody.
Right.
That will be easy to us. Okay. Uncle, you can move. Yeah. You can go to the next one. Thank you.
Okay, right.
Slow.
No, the profundity of the concept of Jeevan Mukta. Just kindly go through this one. Reasons why I call that our concept of Jeevan Mukta is so profound. Okay? Self-renunciation and social context. That's a very important theme. In fact, I'm really sorry.
What is the place of curiosity or knowledge for the Jeevan
Sorry?
Mukta? What is the place of curiosity or knowledge in Jeevan Mukta?
Oh, right. Actually, when I was talking about the highest values in Gurbani, the first one is the really on learning, alphabets, what we call.
Right. So how come Sikhs have not generated a Nobel Prize winner in science or anything like that?
Sorry?
That's going pretty far off the topic here.
What's the
I thought
Let's not take it too far off the topic.
a Jeevan Mukt should be able to, create some new learning. And that's, I think, what he was talking about, new learning. And how come we, as a community, we have not created new knowledge?
Yeah, good. I'll take care of. But learning, the importance of learning in Gurbani is so much obvious, so many hymns on that. In fact, Vidya, what is that?
Vichar
Parupkar, right. Actually, the Parupkar comes only after you really learn something about what the Gurbani is saying, just that one. Okay, this self-renunciation, this is a very important concept, and if you kindly run through this one. The main emphasis, of course, is renunciation of ego, just that, home, just that. And the Siddh Ghosh, for example, clearly states, living in Maya as a necessary challenge for spiritual development. The Sikh metaphor for living amid Maya is that of a lotus which floats in this sticky mud but remains undefiled by it. This is in para 5 of Siddh Gosht.
The question.
Sorry.
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਂਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ ਹਉਮੈ ਨੂੰ ਐਂਡ ਮਾਇਆ ਤੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਪੰਜ ਰੋਗਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਉਮੈ plays such a big role. Can you help differentiate the importance of haume versus maya versus the others?
Right. Let me say that will take us to another issue like the 5 evils, Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Ahankar, just that one. This is one aspect which Gurbani takes care of it. The other on Maya.
Part of Maya. Would you consider them part of Maya?
Which
Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Ahankar are part of Maya?
No. Maya actually is the thought process where you think that everything is illusory and not real. But Gurbani says that it's relatively rare, not in absolute term, but relatively rare.
I thought Maya was very all-encompassing. That Maya was everything that you're immersed in, the material world perhaps?
Right. That's again because of this thinking that everything is not real, that way. I'm not sure whether we are on the same wavelength. Yeah.
Vijay, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I think part of the confusion on haume is when we think of Kam, going back to your original question, when we think Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Ahankar, we think haume is synonymous with Ahankar. Haume is much broader than that. Haume is the whole concept of self, of I and mine separated from Vaheguru. And Gurbani tells you, I don't remember the quotations, but there are some places that tells you that all the 5 evils come out of haume. So Ahankar as well as all the others come out of a self of I and mine separate from everything else. Certainly pride comes from that, you can see that. But Kam, Krodh certainly is tied back to your self of I versus others. And so all of them are basically come out of haume.
So Maya, say something about Maya.
Maya is, well, it's a different concept. Everything is interrelated. But I don't think...
How would you define Maya?
Let Jagmohan Singh do that.
Jagmohan ji, please.
The definition of Maya is कि Maya जित हर विसरे मोह उपजे पाव दूजा लाया. That is the definition of Maya. Anything which separates you from that Almighty God is Maya. So if Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Ahankar are separating you from the Almighty God, that's also a part of Maya.
My submission is Jagmohan ji, absolutely correct. Absolutely.
Dollar money was in Guru Ram Das Ji's house, and that took, money was, but Gurbani teaches us how to use the money, and you can still remain. Gur Prasadi jinna liv lagi, tinni viche Maya paya. So within Maya, you can still achieve him.
Of course.
Gur Prasadi jinna liv lagi.
Right.
Tinna har paya.
See, my submission is only this much, that in Gurbani, every issue is discussed from so many different dimensions, perspectives, that nowhere you will find that the Gurus have prescribed definition as a formula. No, nothing. They're mainly descriptive. So whatever theme you take up, you will not find a precise formula like definition. It will always be descriptive from many aspects. For example, Maya, again, if one goes deeper into this one, will be some of the perspectives Jagmohan ji has mentioned. There are other perspectives also on Maya, but that's again a big...
a couple of those perspectives. One is Maya is what's transient as opposed to permanent.
Right.
And another one is it's what leads to bharam, what leads to confusion. When we think things are one way, but they're really deeper reality is something else. then that which makes you think otherwise is Maya.
So it means Maya has nothing to do with money.
Money can be one major aspect of Maya.
Right. Okay.
Money are part of it.
The Maya is
Because it's transient and it gets you all entangled, right? Another one is it gets you entangled.
But the reason I think what Jeevan Mukt has said is it's kind of, it tells you that anything that distracts you, whether it's money or...
So entanglement is part of Maya, transient, where it seems permanent. We think things are important,
Okay.
but they're actually transient, so that is Maya. So all these aspects of it.
So I'm raising next issue. What does Guru Nanak exactly mean by living in this world?
Living in here and now.
Yeah, right. The Gurus say live in the world but not be of the world.
So,
इन्ना अपने आप ਨੂੰ ਇਨਵੋਲਵ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਲੋ. ਹਾਂਜੀ.
so number 3, the money is not Maya, but uncontrolled lust for money is Maya.
Right.
Because an object cannot be Maya, it is the way you perceive it, it is
I
Maya.
think I'm liberated because I control lust for it.
Right. The whole issue is that as Gurmukhs, we should not be really guided by this, and you will find a very good exposition in Guru Nanak's Siddh Gosht, para 20. Then living in Maya as a necessary challenge for spiritual development. This you will find in Siddh Gosht, para 5.
Yeah, I think that last line is a good answer to the question about money.
Right. Right.
It's not being overly involved in it or attached to it.
Okay. As I said, my main focus will be on Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji's Bani. So here I really tried to summarize whatever Guruji says on some of the aspects of Jeevan Mukta. Ethical commands in Gurbani. Gurbani has repeatedly drawn attention to moral obligation and directly or indirectly issued commandments, sticking to which man may promote the values set before him. Two fundamental imperatives are recognition of divine ordinance, that is hukum, and control over egoism. There are so many shabads on this one where the Gurus say, do this, don't do this. Then the significance of Siddh Gosht. Why I am repeatedly bringing in Siddh Gosht?
Uncle, I have a question. By Mani Singh, the gentleman, the authoritative commentator of Sikh Guru Granth Sahib, he says that a lot of Japji Sahib is in answer to some of the questions the Siddhas asked. Is that your understanding too?
In fact, if you ask me, the most fundamental text in Gurbani, one is really, of course, I don't want to go into all those issues, but Japji Sahib and Siddh Ghosh are the primary sort of texts which deal with the aspects of Jeevan Mukta.
Whereas some of the parties in Japji Sahib, are they an answer to questions raised by the Siddhas?
See, I am sorry to point out the Sikh studies, any aspect, has become so much contentious.
Yeah.
So much contentious. Why? See, the lot of internal weaknesses. For example, here I find the Sikh traditional values or beliefs in Punjab versus the diaspora Sikhs versus the new type of American Sikhs. Each one has a different philosophy and different view, really. And take the universities, what you call the chairs on Gurbani, for example. Again, indulging into a lot of controversial issues. Now, for example, let me get back to Dasam Granth. For example,
My question is not important. It's
The-
curiosity.
Is there the answer not whether the
I know.
My answer to
Yeah,
that is
but I was just curious. Because
Jabji
it
Saab
refers to
was the other way around.
Yeah.
sorry?
If Jabji Saab was written after
you can theoretically say this is the
then one would think that it contains some of the answers to the issues raised in the
No,
But
again,
if it is other way,
see, the interpretation of Gurbani is becoming very, very contentious issue. For example, Jasiji's point on Japji Sahib, Sardar Kapoor Singh, when Jagmohan ji was talking about grace, he says on the region of grace, it has nothing to do with the nether, etc., but it is all sort of a description of Sikh cosmology. I'll pass on that paper to Jessie ji, then she can really deal with
That
it.
was actually, I shouldn't have asked that question. It was just curiosity. So,
Right.
rewind, delete.
Right. The interpretation of Gurbani is a really big issue. Just that one. There are some scientists like Indra Mohanji who really go by faith. There are some scientists, a group of who are really atheists, and they think they don't accept Gurbani as a revealed Bani or Sikhism as a revealed religion at all. This is all that, right, quite. I got another scholar's book which is titled as the Socially Involved Renunciate. And there are two authors actually, Dr. Jaswinder Singh and Kamala Elizabeth. These four categories of style of living they've mentioned, and my purpose in saying is this one, that our Gurbani really promotes this fourth category. Just reverting back to Sid Ghosh theme as such, you can just quickly go over this one. The main point here is really that the ancient traditions, they like to embrace asceticism, while the later tradition like Sikhism seem to place greater importance on devotionalism meant for the layperson.
Why do you say, okay.
On loving devotion, there are so many sort of shabads in Gurbani. Marjivide, for example, there is a very famous Shabad by Guru Amar Das ji. at page 589, भगत करे मर जीवड़े गुरमुख भगत सदा होए, उना को धुर भगत खजाना बख्शिया, मेट न सके कोय, गुण निधान मन पाया, एको सच्चा सोए, नानक गुरमुख मिल रहे, फिर वे छोड़ा कदे नाए. Of a description of Mar Jivde in Gurbani. This is my concluding remarks. And thank you so much, really, bearing with me for right.
Thank you. You've done a lot of very good research.
Sorry?
You've done a lot of very good research. Thank you. And I think a lot of is in the slides, so we are going to go back and look at the slides afterwards.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much
Yes,
for
that's so much homework to do, Uncle.
Right.